Everybody, welcome back. Large man abroad. Let's have a talk. Okay, so I have this thing where I don't like the idea of kids starving in my country, or in any country around the world. I don't think that we should benefit here while kids starve in other places. And funny enough, there's people out there that would say that that makes me naive. That that's not something that I really would like to tolerate if I were in control of things, right? Like if I were in control of things, that'd be one of the first priorities I have. Would be to stop childhood hunger. And for most people who don't know, America actually has 14 million children who face food insecurity every night. They don't know if they're going to have food. And if they have food, it might not be enough. And overall, there's 43 million people in America who suffer from food insecurity. That's more than 10% of our country. This great country, this great nation, the United States. And this is something that, if it's not an oversight, it can only really be done on purpose, because I've been told by so many people that in order for our economy to get strong again, in order for America to become great again, we got to go through some tough times here. Does tough times mean starving children? Was famine on the list of those tough times? Because it looks like that's what we're going to be going into. Food banks all over the United States are going to hit hard right now. I mean, just to look at in Nebraska, a state that barely has any people in it, really. 580,000 people there. I take that back. 580,000 households use food banks or some kind of food welfare program in that state in order to just feed their families. Now, because of the cuts, what you're seeing all over the country is a lot of food banks, instead of operating all month, now they can only operate 2 weeks a month because they're just not getting the supplies that they used to. Why is this happening? Don't we have enough food in America? Well, maybe if you take $500 million away from the USDA, and a lot of that coming from their emergency food aid that goes to buy produce and food and all sorts of shit, from domestic farmers here in America to supply food banks. No one thought about that, I guess, when we're like, oh, we just need to cut the government. So this is what I'm talking about. You have things like this, and that's not even the cause of the tariffs yet. And they're saying that that's going to cause a 10 to 15% increase on the price of food at the grocery store. People are barely getting by as it is. But this is the kind of suffering that you just have to go through, guys. This is how we get change in America. This is how our economy gets great again. We're going to cut food for poor people. That makes sense. Are we going to, raise taxes on the wealthy, maybe? The people who own all the assets in this country, or the people who make billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. Are we going to raise taxes on them and maybe take some of the money from that and divert that to make sure that there's food for the poorest and most vulnerable of us, including 14 million children in America? Could we do that? No. You see, that's not how you make America great, right? Because that's going to hurt my friends. And I got to go to dinner parties with these people. I got to go golfing with these people. I don't want to ruffle their feathers. I'm never going to see you because you're a peasant. And because I'm not going to see you, it's out of sight, out of mind. You're starving kids. It's the price of progress, ladies and gents. The price of progress. It's a sick joke. Let it burn. Let it fall. Let it fall. It's a joke to me that people still defend this kind of action. I understand, as somebody who came from absolutely nothing, really, I understand that you have to suffer to kind of get up somewhere. But you can't put that suffering on other people. If I want my life to get better, I'm not going to make everyone's life around me worse, because it's my choice. I want to make my life better. At no point would I say, I want to make more money. How can I do this? How can I make things in my life more efficient? What if I take food away from my neighbor? That might help me. How? How does that help you? How does that make our country strong? How does it make it great? How does it make us look good in our own eyes? Forget the eyes of other countries. They already hate us. They have no reason to like us because we are, for all intents and purposes, becoming the great supervillain on this planet if we aren't already that. I mean, between the endless wars, the constant regime changes caused by our government in other countries that's been going on for generations at this point, are we a good actor? Are we the baddies? I think genuinely, my fellow Americans, this is something that we have to ask ourselves at this point. Are we the bad guys? Because it really is looking that way. I mean, the Pope died just a few days ago, really, right? They had the funeral. And now you have people from the crazier side of our political spectrum in America now saying that, we need a pope that reflects more MAGA values. Are you out of your mind? Like, I understand there's a thought that this is a Christian country. And as a Christian, I can tell you, this country is the farthest thing from being Christian. This is the opposite. There's a lot of people in the comments call America Babylon. Yeah, it kind of looks that way at this point. And the people who are often on TV telling us, how to be good Christians and things like that, are usually terrible people. Terrible people who do things like, take food away from food banks, increase childhood food insecurity. If there's 14 million children in this country right now that are having to go home and not know if there's going to be food, and 47 million adults who are facing the same thing, the answer isn't to, hey, you just need to work more. I don't know if you knew this, right? People out there who agree with starving children. I don't know if you knew this, but the poorest people work the most. If you're making $50, $60 an hour, guess what? You don't have to work that much. You really don't. If you're making $7.50, $9 an hour, guess what? You got to work all the time. All the time. Those are the people with 2 jobs, 3 jobs. You can look around you and think that life's pretty good. We got food. I got a roof over my head. I'm making nice $80K a year, which is nothing these days, really. I'm making $150,000, $300,000 a year. It's because I worked really hard. I don't know what these people's problem is. And this is one of the biggest problems. This idea of just the pull yourself up by your bootstraps trope is just archaic at this point and cruel at the least. Cruel at the least. Times have changed significantly. The work culture has changed significantly. The price of surviving in this country has changed significantly, and the idea of the American dream is a nightmare that no one's going to really attain at this point. And no one except a select few people, very few people. And if you're in that position where you've done it and you've made it, it used to be in a time where community meant something, and we had smaller populations really, but the most wealthy people in the town were looked upon to contribute the most. That's why they became leaders. That's why they became noblemen, either through charity or war. Mostly war, if we're being honest, but still, you look to the church, you look to royalty in times of hardship to provide. Even if we're going back to the days of ancient Egypt, they still had massive granary storages. So in case there was a famine, they could still feed people, and they'd have public projects if things went down, creating pyramids, things like that, to get people's mind off of, revolting, because they'd actually be able to have enough of a wage that they can have food, or they just get paid in food. But what reserves do we have in America? We're not a country that saves. We're a debt country. We don't have a surplus of grain. We don't have a surplus of meat. We don't have a surplus of mangoes and avocados. Whatever you want. We don't have a surplus of these things. Things have changed in the past few decades, where we used to have every grocery store used to have a big supply of food that they kept in the warehouse behind the store. But that's not something that grocery stores do now, right? They're in and out. Everything comes on a truck within a day, goes out there, and that's it. And then the trucks keep coming. The cycle has to continue. If there's an interruption in the supply chain, you get famine. Anyone who is like a paranoid conspiracy theory person, right, understands how weak the supply chain is. And it is. And I think at this point it's becoming such basic knowledge that people understand that if anything goes down in this complicated machine that is running our country, it all goes down and it goes bad. And most people don't have enough food to last 3 days in their home. And if almost 50 million Americans don't even know if they're going to eat that day, how many days of food do you think they have in their home? How many days of food do you think those 14 million kids have in their home if things go bad? This is what I'm saying. It's oversight, and we focus on the dream instead of the reality and the consequences of pursuing those dreams. This isn't collateral damage. Starving children isn't collateral damage. Increasing poverty in America isn't collateral damage. Not when the promise and the goal is to make America better, make America stronger. Because if anything, by the consequences of your actions, you show that you are a danger and an enemy to the Republic. If you make children starve so that your country can be strong, You're the villain. You're the bad guy. That's reality. And it doesn't matter how you disassociate from those consequences. If you still promote it at that point, you as well are a villain. And it may be a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, because in America, we are always so convinced that we are great. We are the best. We are the good guys always, even though, just a cursory glance at our history shows that we are notorious villains at this point. And the bodies of the fallen of those who spoke out against us are multitudinous. And see, the problem doesn't stop there. By it affecting the poorest people of America, they're just the first to be affected. The fact is, this is going to affect everybody. Because if the farmers are making less money, then farmers have to stop farming because they can't afford to run their farms. And if we've made it impossible to import food from foreign lands because they're the enemy and we got to rely on America, we're not getting food from anywhere else. So if we're not going to be getting food from America, if we're not going to be getting food from outside of America, where are we going to get our food? Where? Because you may think that America is a great producer of food, and it is, but it's grain, and most of it goes to feeding livestock. All of our food is imported. All of it. It's not even just the food. 30% of the storage containers that are used to put your food on the shelves are from China. This is affecting everything in our lives. This trade war has to end. The attack on the globe has to end, because it's, number one, you can't make our country stronger if you're only going to make our enemies stronger. And we're definitely not going to be stronger if we've made every ally our enemy. We've always said that in America, united we are strong. But that's not something that's just Americans. That's alliances. Alliances only work when they are united. When they are disunited, they are enemies. And in this system, the way that things work now, generally people have to look out for each other. Countries need to supply other countries with things, or it all goes terrible. When the Ukraine war kicked off and everyone said that, this is going to cause massive damage to the supply chain of wheat going to places like Africa. In America, we really don't care, because you're like, well, it's America. And again, out of sight, out of mind. But people die. People not on the battlefield. People thousands of miles away. Children, they starve. They die. But out of sight, out of mind. But I guess they don't have to be thousands of miles away. They can just be 5 miles away. And some people are okay with that. And like I said, this place is going down. It's a pile of shit. And some people are happy. Pigs and shit. It's just bad. It's getting worse. There's no accountability. People, I guess, are happy with famine in America. People, I guess, are happy with kids starving in America because nothing's changing. And I guess we're just going to have to go through this hardship together in order for our country to be great again. What a crock of horse shit. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.